Yay. Hello, friends. All right. I'm really excited about today. And let me tell you why. Because I get the opportunity to talk with Hannah Smith, and Hannah is an amazing agent. And she is going into her second year of being a part of our summit. I followed her a little bit before then. I kind of did some stalking, as one does. But she's so fun, super relatable, really authentic. If you don't already follow her on Instagram, we're going to give you all of her details so you can check her out. But Hannah, would you mind telling everybody who you are and a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. I'm Hannah Smith. I'm up here in the Twin Cities, Metro Minnesota. I also help run a team called the Property Geeks. And so that's kind of where my brand is too, online and on Instagram is the Property Geek. This is my 11th year in real estate, which is wild. I got my license when I was pregnant with my daughter. And so her age basically is like the perfect like benchmarker
Yeah.
for my career. I started really young. And so the way that I built my entire business was pretty much social media because it was free. This was like before ads, before, sponsored ads or whatever. I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I have like no money. So, they were all telling me to do postcards and then they're like, oh, well, then just do e-cards on emails. And I'm like, come on, guys. And so I just started going on Snapchat and that's how I started. I, was just, if I look back, it's awful, but it just kind of progressed, and I evolved with the social media platforms. And yeah, that's like really where my brand and our team and our agent partners have grown, is mostly from just making genuine connections on social media. So it's a fun ride.
Okay, I love this. And there's so many things I want to dive into. First of all, you said you started on Snapchat. What did that look like? Because that's so fun for me. I have not heard anybody say I utilized Snapchat for real estate at first. So tell me about how you did that.
Yeah, so, go back 10 years ago, right? And Instagram was a lot of like, it was just kind of picking up, right? Facebook was already happening, of course. We had all moved from MySpace to Facebook. But Instagram was mostly like a bunch of like sepia tone pictures of our food, right? Like there wasn't a lot going on there. But Snapchat, it was like raw, right? It was like the only place that you really were raw at that point. Everything was so like curated in a way everywhere else. And so I literally just started on my Snapchat story, just kind of like starting my whole journey of getting licensed. And granted, not high quality, right? Like we're talking like the biggest filter was like when the dog face, where if you open your mouth, like the tongue would come out, right? Just like, and I would just chit chat about real estate like super, super casually. And then what I started doing is just posting little shots of like being in a home or being at the office and just kind of, establishing myself as a realtor to my current sphere, right? And like that's, I think, your biggest hump to get over when you're brand new is like, I want people to think Hannah Smith real estate Hannah Smith. Like they should always be combined in their brain. And so I was like, okay, if I show people every single day that I'm doing real estate on my Snapchat stories, then that will just like remind them, like it's like a mind game, right? Like, hey, Hannah's in real estate. And so like I would do everything on there. I would also like tell funny stories about just like what happened to me that day or whatever, and like use the filters and the voice changers just to make it like entertaining. And that's literally like how I started. And then as like Instagram got more popular and Facebook were used for more things, I started hopping on those too. And like the stories came out everywhere else. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. So it's really crazy to think back on I was trying to pull up some Snapchat videos from the past, but before, like, you never saved anything on Snapchat, right? So like
Right.
all of that, thank God, is like in the abyss of Snapchat history.
So I love that you mentioned the filters because as we're recording this, today is Valentine's Day. So it was kind of timely. And you know how your phone gives you like memories from this day. And
Mhm.
all of my memories from years ago have pictures of me with like the little heart filters. Do you know what I'm talking about? And I'm like, I look back at a certain time period of like about a year and a half, and there is not a single photo where I'm not a cat, a dog, have hearts. Like, and I'm like, what were we thinking?
We just thought it was so cool. Like,
It
it
was
was
so cool.
like the AI of like, no, "Ooh, where's my head? Oh, the filter
Yeah.
found my head." It was like it was a time in history, that's for sure.
There
Like,
was a time.
oy.
But the coolest part is that's how you really got started in social media for your business. So it is a journey. And I
Yeah.
love that you said that it was not curated in any way. It was not perfect. And here's what I always like to say. If you don't look back at stuff that you did 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and cringe a little inside, then you probably weren't trying hard enough because I really feel
100%.
like you should evolve over time, but that cringy stuff is some of the best stuff because that means you were putting yourself out there.
Yeah, and I think it also shows growth.
Yep.
'Cause right
100%.
now what you're posting, you're not cringing at, so obviously it's better. You know what I mean? Even if you're the only one that thinks it's better, right? Like,
Yeah.
so and I think
100%.
that the filters and all that stuff were so cringy, but I think at the time it gave us the confidence to get on a screen that if we had just been no filter and like whatever, a lot of us probably wouldn't have done even the cringiness stuff. We would
Yeah.
have just been nothing. So it's like, it is crazy to look back and like, I look at my reels from like a couple years ago going, "Ooh," like I can see the mistakes and I can see like the things. And then, yeah, you have to remind yourself like, okay, it's fine. It's okay. It's out there. And I probably cringe at it harder than anybody else, but it's also because I know where I've gone since,
Yeah.
so it's just like super cool. But yeah, the
That's so
darn
funny.
dog faces, I tell you what.
Dog
And then
faces.
just the tongue like would randomly just
That's
like
awesome.
like pop out and just how distracting is that?
Oh my god, it's so funny. But also, with that being said, I think you like pointed out something that I 100% agree with, which is those filters really gave us the confidence to show up. And
Mhm.
even now, um, darn Instagram for messing with things and getting rid of a lot of those filters. But I'm going to be honest with you and say that, like, I love doing stories. I think that it is a really easy way to get in front of your audience in a really um, uh, I don't know, it's just in a really easy way
Absolutely.
because it goes away, kind of like Snapchat. It goes
Mhm.
away, so you don't have to look at it for a long period of time as opposed to posting something on your feed and you scroll back and you're like, "Oh my gosh, what was I doing?"
Mhm.
But, when Instagram announced that they were getting rid of all of those filters, I kinda died a little bit inside
Yeah.
because there are days that I don't wanna put on makeup, but I still wanna look, like a human, and so I need that filter, and I'm not
Yeah.
saying to, like, give me, like, something completely fake, but just to kind of, like, I don't know, not make me look like I just woke up, so
Yeah, no, it's perfect. That's like 100% true. Like, and I tell agents that I help with social media, like I always tell them like, "Hey, if that's what's going to get you on the camera, do it."
Yeah,
Right? Like, of course, like you said, it's not the ones that are like giving you a facelift and like changing your jawline, but it's something that's going to make you a little bit more confident being like, "Hey, if I had makeup on, this is what I would look like." You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like that's okay. And I think that it definitely like boosts your confidence enough to get past that line. And then eventually, as you're doing it, you just stop kind of caring on your stories as much too. And I think the other part to like, not only does it go away, so you can like be like, oh, well, whoever saw it, and that's done and done, whatever. But also, like, it kind of, as you start talking on your stories, how do I describe it? It kind of gives the like FOMO effect. So like sometimes I'll be like, "Oh, I was talking my story the other day," and if someone's seeing my story and they didn't see the other day, they're like, "Dang, I missed that." Now I want to be more up to date with her and be actually watching her day-to-day stuff. So it kind of like it goes twofold, it makes you
yeah,
more relatable and easy to like connect with, but then it also like creates this idea like, oh, I want to see what she's doing today on her stories. And then you realize that the filters are great for our own confidence, but most people don't care
they don't
that are
care.
actually watching it. Like I'm sure nobody really cared about the tongue sticking out of my mouth during that time versus like no one's going to judge me whether I have a filter on my face or I don't.
Right.
And so stories are, yeah, I'm 100% agree with you. Stories are such like a slept on part of Instagram when people are like, oh, I need to post more. I'm like, well, you're probably not on your story as enough as you should be,
Yeah, yeah.
as your first, because that's going to build your confidence to so many other ways.
Right. And I think too, it's really important to remember that we care a lot more about what we look like when we show up than
Mhm.
anyone else does. And I was just talking to a friend the other day. I was like, I cannot believe this. Like, this is embarrassing. So, I have like my average number of views that I can expect to get from a story. Obviously, that fluctuates up and down. But
Totally.
I have found that when I post the cringiest, most ickiest, the darkest photo of me under a blanket with popcorn falling out of my mouth and my hair in a top knot, I will get 4, 5, 6 times as many views and
Mhm.
engagement because people love those raw, real moments. Now, it is
Mhm.
definitely not something I would ever post on my feed because I am an aesthetic girly. I like
Mhm.
things to, I want to look back and be like, oh, it's all pretty and nice, but
Mhm.
people love those moments. So I think it's a really good lesson to not be afraid to be a little bit cringe if you have
Yeah.
to.
I think it makes you stand out though too, right? Because like
Yeah.
being cringy, a lot of times it's probably we cringe at ourselves because like you said, we're not thinking, no one's thinking about us as much as we are thinking. Everybody's their own main character, right?
Yep.
Like no one else is spotlighted on you 24/7 all the time, right? That's
Yep.
they're thinking about them and then you pop up here and there, right? So, but it is like it's that thing that your stories are like that confidence of being raw, then people get that kind of glimpse inside of you. And that feeling of being cringy is typically because you're letting other people see your quirks or your
Yep.
weaknesses or like whatever it is. Like that's my thing is I cringe because like I know I'm kind of a quirky girl. Like I have weird quirks. Like if you ask my boyfriend, he could go on for days, like I'm a quirky person. I talk to myself out loud when I'm alone. I hit my wrists and my elbows on every single doorway I ever walk through. Like I have like just weird quirks. And I think we cringe at ourselves because when we allow those to kind of be highlighted and seen by other people, it's like, ooh, like, ooh, oh my gosh, But it's just, it is the way of the world, right? Because everybody has them. So people respect when you go out and kind of, vulnerable is a very like strong word, but really like kind of like take down to like be that more vulnerable self. And then they in return feel like, oh, that might have been kind of cringy, but I respect her for being herself, and they
100%.
become more comfortable. And it's always about how you're going to make people feel, right? Like
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, it doesn't matter what you say or I mean, it doesn't, I don't tell my daughter this because then she wouldn't take that literally. It doesn't matter what you say or what you do. It's how you make people feel. Right. And that's at the
Yeah.
end of the day, that's what people are going to remember. Or even if they're like subconsciously remembering that about you, that's it. So if you make people feel comfortable and, happy or whatever it is, or like connected or understood or heard, that's 100 times better than anything else,
Yep.
and
Absolutely. I
stories
love
help you do
that.
that. Yeah.
So, okay, so you started on Snapchat. Obviously, you moved over to Instagram. How did you start seeing growth? Like what was your I don't know, what was your secret, would you say, to the growth that you started to get on Instagram? And when did you start seeing leads come in? Like how did that all play out for you?
Yeah. So I would say two things. I would say my leads coming in was actually way before my Instagram growth. I think that, whether you have 1,000 followers or 100,000 followers, it's the percentage of people that are connecting with you and actually knowing you that matter. And so for me, like even when I had, I remember I took a screenshot of my profile. I had 999 followers for so long. And I'm an even girl. Like I like even numbers. And so I was just like, I might as well just block someone. So at least I'm 998, right? Like I can't stand this any longer. So I have a screenshot of it. And at that time, I was getting a steady flow of, what I would consider like sphere leads, but they're sphere leads because they've been watching me on social, right? Like I'm staying in
Mhm.
front of my sphere that way. I was getting them way, not obviously in abundance, but enough steady flow. And then really when it came to my growth on Instagram and seeing that lead, count grow, and then as well as like my follower count and all that stuff was really like January 2021 when I just was like, you know what, I'm doing these stupid freaking reels and I'm just going to start doing them. You know what I mean? Like I do them here and there on the side, but seeing how TikTok had blown up, you know, all that kind of stuff, like through 2020, I had been posting what I've normally post and all that, but I finally was like, all right, I really need to double down on Reels. And that's when they were getting really popular, you know, because TikTok had kind of shown what short form video could do. And Instagram started, you know, being like, oh, I should probably do that too. Right. So that's really where I started to see when I started being really consistent with Reels. I grew from 2021 until like the whole year. I grew like tens of thousands of followers just from doing that. And they're both realtor, you know, followers, they're client followers, sphere followers, or whatever have you, right? Community. And that has grown, which then grows my business, right? Because the more eyeballs you're going to have, typically you're going to have more opportunities. And a lot of it, you know, I get a lot of agent referrals off of Instagram. And I think a lot of people come to me that are growing. And they're like, I'm growing, but they're almost all realtors. It's like, great. That's awesome. Like, and we're complaining why, you know, like I'm sorry, because there's so much opportunity when you have industry folk that are following you from all over, right? Like having an agent call you from California saying, hey, I've got someone coming in from Minnesota, I don't actually know you, but I'm following you for 2 years, you know, can you take on my client? Like that's amazing, right? I don't know anyone that would say no to that.
Yeah.
So sorry, that went on a tangent, but I started really growing when I did Reels. And then I feel like you have spurts where you get that momentum, you know, and you kind of hit like another growth, I don't know, kind of like a benchmark. But I've been very intentional on actually trying to slow that growth down and being specific on who I want to have follow me, right? Like at one point I went through and had to go through like all the bots and all the people that had no business, right? You have no
Yeah.
business. But yeah, I don't know. I hope that answers the question. I kind of went on an ADHD rant there.
No, there was like a lot of information there that was like really good. So first of all, I just want to point out that you said that you were getting leads before you even had tens of thousands of followers. So I think the idea of bigger is better is not always the case. And I think that's really important to remember because a lot of times we're like, well, I can't really start posting or doing anything until I get X amount of followers, or I can't get leads until I have this many followers. And I know that that's always like a really big, I think that it's I call them obviously vanity metrics, but we get really stuck in the vanity metrics of it all. And a lot of times I think that that stops us from growth. Oh, I only have 500 followers. Can you imagine if you were in a room of 500 people and they were all listening to you?
Yes, exactly.
Like, hello, what would
Talk
you
about
say to
that
those 500?
influence.
Yeah. Yep. So,
Yeah, I love that. That's exactly true.
yeah. And then you were saying that, and this is actually a question that I see all the time. I have all these realtors following me. Like, is that okay? Should I be following other realtors or should I not? Should I allow them? Should I not? That kind of thing. And you actually had a really good point. It's a good way for you to create connections across the country
Mhm.
because you can get referrals from them.
And I've even too, with that, I forgot to mention this too, especially during the 2021 crazy pull our hair out moments that we had. There were multiple times that I was in a multiple offer situation as a buyer's agent, and the listing agent would be like, hey, I follow you on Instagram. And it gave me an in. Like there were literally
Mhm.
like multiple times this happened where a local agent who you're like, oh, what's ever going to happen with them to follow me? Well, they felt connected with me and they felt like we were friends then, you know, and they were like, oh, I'm going to put a little gold star by her offer because I want to work with her. Like, cause I
Yeah.
see her posting, I see that she does for her clients. I see that she's, you know, professional and understands the business and like will get the job done. Right. And so even the local realtors following me has become a perk because they know me, you know, and it's going in that familiarity of us being able to tell our clients, hey, I know this deal is going to get done because I know the person on the other side. And maybe this is different in different markets, but for us, like that's a big thing. We saw a lot of deals fall through. We saw a lot, you know, a lot of the newer agents coming into COVID that didn't get enough guidance or training to do the job properly. And so having those connections are huge. And so even having local people follow you, you know, it's not a bad thing. I think that it's a competition issue in your brain. It's a, oh,
Yeah.
they're my comp, just like, okay. At the end of the day, we're all working together,
Right.
in a transaction. And so the better I can have connections with people around me is only going to better my clients.
Yeah. I love that, and especially since it's a different way of framing how you think about your leads on Instagram, because I know that when I speak to people, they're like, I don't have leads on Instagram. Well, do you have other agents that follow you? Do you have your sphere that follows you? All of those people are potential leads. You just need to
Mhm.
find a way to tap into what their needs are and how you can connect with them so that they can turn into actual clients, referrals, what have you. So I love
Mhm.
that you said that. That's amazing.
Yeah. And the vanity metrics too, I think that's like, first and foremost, that's so human and normal to be not obsessed over them, but feel like, oh, my follower count, or oh, like this or that, like my view count, that kind of stuff. That's totally normal, right? Like it's natural for us to think about that, because Instagram, if you look at influencers, right, or the people that are using social media not for their business, but like as their business, right? That's different. That's what matters. And so that's what has been put in our brain as what is important on social media, right?
Mhm.
It's important. Like, oh, you see a follower count. Oh, well, they must be really cool or exciting, whatever the case is, because they're so like Instagram has built our brains to think like that.
Yeah.
But for our business and our connections, that's not the metric that we should care about, even though as humans, we're going to care about it because that's how we've been, trained. But for
Right.
our business, that's not necessarily what we need. We need the connections and we need the way to stand out, whether you're talking to 500 people or 50,000 people, and I think so it's the vanity metrics are a real thing. And so I always like try to validate the fact that like, yes, I do the same thing. I get obsessed over like 9.99. I couldn't even stop thinking about it. And it was so dumb, right? Like, oh, is that one extra follower going to get me a new deal? Probably not, right? But like, it was like a thing. So I always just like to validate, like, yes, it totally is normal to be like, feel, oh, I don't have this and I don't have that, kind of feel down on yourself, but don't let that affect your business, because it's just for real estate. It just doesn't matter.
Yeah. And so just kind of an underrated strategy that I think you touched on that I just want to point out, which is you went through and you actually removed followers. And there's actually a feature inside Instagram, and I cannot remember exactly where it's at, but if you go, I think maybe to your followers, it'll be like people that you likely don't want following you is
Hmm.
essentially what it's saying. And a lot of times those are either deactivated accounts or accounts of bots or things like that. Now, every once in a while, I find somebody that I'm like, "Oop, how'd you end up in there?" But it
Hmm.
is a really good idea for if you're like listening to this or watching this, open up your phone, go into Instagram, and check out that list and remove those people from following you, because obviously they're not engaging with you. They're not real people, or they're not on Instagram anymore, whatever that case may be.
Hmm.
And that can actually hurt your reach, because they're like, well, why do you have 1,000 followers if only 200 of them are interested in your stuff? So
Hmm.
definitely go through and do that. But you kind of said that, and I was like, oh, I want to mention that too, because that's a really good point. And also, I don't know if you heard this, Hannah, but Instagram is looking at hiding likes
Hmm.
and shares. And I think it's because they have realized that ultimately what they have done is they have created this atmosphere where it doesn't feel fun for a lot of us anymore. It doesn't feel as authentic as it did,
Hmm.
because we're chasing those likes. And there's a whole psychology around this, by the way, because like I'm a geek like that. And there's a whole thing about like how those likes equal like dopamines, and it like spikes your levels and like all
Oh
that
yeah,
stuff.
it's
And
true.
so, with all of that being said, I'm really curious about how that's going to evolve also.
Yeah, I think so too. And I always tell people, like, the engagement rate is so much more important than your
Yeah.
follower count. And so, we did a competition last year in our team, to see who could have the highest engagement rate on any,
Fun.
just for fun, to like, just, I really wanted the agents to start paying more attention to that engagement rate versus their follower count or whatever else, just to see. Because at the time, like, that's when like saves started being really like a lot higher ranking is when you got like saves versus likes or comments and whatever, right? And shares. I think shares are huge because you're literally getting a free connection to someone else because someone else is sharing your thing. So I was like, let's do a competition. Like, let's see. I'm a competition girly. I love a good, I love a good challenge. And so, and it was really fun. Like, I taught them all how to calculate their engagement rate. And then I don't know if it was a week or 2 weeks, but for any post that you did during that time, you calculated your own engagement rate. And I told the ones that always complained about their follower count, this is your time to shine. The lower follower count, the easier it is to have a high engagement, just literally by the math, right? So if you're taking 1,000 people and dividing it by 200 likes versus taking 10,000 people or followers and dividing it by 200 likes, who's going to come out winning? The 1,000 followers, right? So it's just like, it's a mind shift kind of thing, and knowing like what matters in your content. And at the end of the day, there are so many times where people will call me to buy or sell. And I look back, I'm like, I don't even know if they actually follow me or if I just pop up on their stuff, or let alone like, do they like anything or have ever shown any actual engagement, but I was reminding them, and in their brains, Hannah Smith Real Estate, it was just hand in hand. We got to sell our house. Well, Hannah does real estate, right? And so like, that's what it's really hard because it's not an easy metric to find, or to calculate. And so it's just about, kind of doing what you think is the most kind of genuine to your brand and what's going to connect with your clientele, and then let the numbers fall, right? How they are. Like, well, that's just gonna, believe me, I still get in my head about stuff all the time where I'm like, dang, I really thought that reel was going to go somewhere, like just because it's fun to see. It's just kind of fun to see them go wild sometimes, and you never know which one's going to go wild. And so like, but sometimes I'm like, dang, I thought that was really funny. I guess I'm the only one that thought that was funny, It's like, oh, you're a stand-up comedian and like no one laughs. You're like, cool. I love this.
That's amazing. And it always seems like it's the ones that you're like, well, I'll just throw this up and do it. That you're like, wait, I didn't expect that to go anywhere. And then, the literally ones that you're like, oh, this is going to be great. Everybody's going to love it. It's like crickets. And you're like, all right, cool. All right.
Do I even know how to run my own life at this point? Like, literally it is. It's always the ones that I'm about to delete and like, okay, this is so stupid. And then I post it and I'm like, oh, okay. Like, people like it. It's so dumb. I'm like, what the heck? Yeah, it's an ever-loving game,
I love it. I want to shift the conversation a little bit because you've mentioned it a couple times, and I'm really just curious about your team and your brand. I want to know how that started and evolved. I want to know all the things about it. So tell me about Property Geeks.
Oh, yeah. We have been 8 years, I think it has been, since we started it. And it's evolved, of course, as the time has gone on. But it all started because, so I have 2 other business partners. One's Karen Pancook and the other Sarah Ruland. You'd probably see them on my socials. And Karen was an agent in the office. I actually started in the brokerage as a marketing consultant for agents when I was like 21, turning 22. And so that's how I started. I didn't even like have any intention of getting my license. So I had started that. And, a lot of the agents in our office were older and like either didn't have a Facebook or never used Facebook. You know what I mean? Like, and here I was like, hey, we should use socials, and so Karen was one of the few, she was one of the younger agents. And she really was like, oh, I feel like I should listen to you, and like, let's sit. So we just became friends. And then, fast forward a little bit, I end up getting my license. And I walked up to her and I was like, hey, so like, you're good at this and I'm not. So I'm going to sit right here in your office and just listen to everything you do. And she was like, okay. And I'm like, oh, sick. Okay, awesome. Sounds good. Like, I didn't expect that. But sounds cool. I like you. So literally just like, I learned from her. And then we didn't do necessarily every deal together, but we did deals side by side, or we would like, kind of communicate on them. And she would help me obviously with like basically everything. And we started kind of officing together as ourselves, and kind of just became natural. And then Sarah came in not that long after as Karin's assistant originally. And then the three of us just became our own little gang, right? Like we just kind of like sat in the same office, yada, yada. Like people were always kind of popping their heads in, being like, what you guys working on? And we're like, I don't know, just stuff, like it was just always like such a good vibe. And then we just wanted a certain culture around us. And our office wasn't bad by any means, but there were just a lot of agents that had different mindsets than us. And we just didn't feel like we were in the right place. And we felt like even if it was just the three of us alone, we could create something like what we wanted. And it was going to be a lot different than your average real estate team. Normal real estate teams start with an agent that gets too busy and they have to hire a buyer's agent or an assistant. And then that turns into a couple buyer's agents. And you know what I mean? And it's just like this natural kind of fall of a team. But we kind of came at it from a different angle. But we moved to Karin's house and started officing out of her house just to feel like we were making our own culture and our own kind of energy. And we came up with, and we were like, let's be a team. Like, why not brand ourselves? It all was so organic and like not pristinely planned out. And we started just like going online and trying to find like, oh, that'd be cute. And we're like, we should like, oh, and we always say we're geeking out. We're just like, oh, we're geeking out about this. And so we were trying to think of a name, and I don't know, like out, just going back and forth. It's like, oh, the Property Geeks. Like that is so, the Property Brothers were really popular back then. And we liked not having home or house in our name. And so we're like, ooh, property. Cause we did like investment properties too. And so it's not always home. Right. So we came up with the Property Geeks, came out with the glasses logo. I think, the one idea that I really had that I was really proud of is I'm the one that came up with the eyebrow, like the little like eyebrow we have on the glasses. I thought that was like literally like the smartest thing I've ever thought of in my life. So we did that. And then, and we finally made the decision to get an office of our own in downtown Lakeville. It was smaller, but we're like, okay, we could do this. And Sarah had gotten licensed. So now that was like the three of us. And then talking about cringy content, we were doing Facebook Lives every week. Grill the Geeks, it was called. Grill the Geeks. Don't look back at it. Don't. And it was literally like Facebook Live is when those were like super, super big. Like they had just popped up, right?
Yeah.
And we did like this right in front of Karin's fireplace. And we'd sit, just so cringy. And we'd sit, and then we'd have like a topic and we'd talk, and it was awful. And then Sarah was in the background. No, you found him. Don't. No.
I'll link to them below.
It's in the comments.
It's in the comments. Oh, that's so fun. Okay.
They're so bad. And so and then like, but the funniest thing is they were awful videos, right? But we were trying to get, some traction. And what we didn't realize is that was actually going to cause other realtors to reach out and ask to be on our team. And we were like, oh, this is like a thing, like people want to be with us. We're like, we don't even, okay, like we just got a logo. It was just like a progression, and I think that was like, we just kind of jumped in, and we didn't have a big plan. We didn't have this like master plan of like how to get things done. It was just like and I think the biggest thing with Karin too is Karin was at a place where she was a busy agent, she was rocking and rolling and had her own thing going. And she had like always wanted to be more of like a mentor. Like obviously I literally told her, I'm going to sit right by you and listen to everything you say. And she was like, cool. Right. So like she was like a natural mentor, a natural kind of like teacher. But every time she'd ever talk to another agent or broker about starting a team, it was always like, here's the blueprint. This is what you do. And she's like, I don't like that blueprint. Like, I don't want to do it like that. You know what I mean? So we kind of were able to build it in a way that made a lot of sense on how Karin had envisioned it in the very beginning. And then we all took our strengths. The three of us are very, very different people. Anybody that meets one of us and then meets the other two are like, like not that they were super, like our values are the same, right? But the way we process, the way we talk, the way we communicate is a lot different. But it works because then we're able to see the different sides of each other's, thought processes and make a better decision than just like one sole person. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and then we just grew from there. We got our office. We grew with a few agents here and there. Eventually we moved brokerages, and I felt like at that point when we moved brokers, we were about 10 agents, and then we exploded. And I think at our most agents count, we had almost 40. We had like 37 or something like that agents, which was a lot. It was a lot. But yeah, it's wild now. Now we have two sections of the Property Geeks. We have a standard team. There's usually about anywhere between 5 and 10 agents on that any given time. And it's a lot more newer agents, mentor agents, that type of thing, or just part-timers. And then we have a collective called the Property Geeks. That's like seasoned agents that all kind of work hand in hand. But we don't have a split or anything like that. It's just a group of like-minded individuals that want to share and collaborate with agents kind of at their same caliber. So it's been really cool to watch that grow and like expand in different ways. It's just wild to think it's been like 8 years, to be honest. Like, it's like, I've had Karin and Sarah always make fun of me about how many hairstyles I've had since we started. Because like one Girl the Geeks videos, like you see it and then you see it in all of our team photos.
I didn't recognize you when I was over here like searching the thing. I was like, is that her? I didn't even recognize you. That's pretty good. That's so fun.
Oh my God, it's awful. They're so bad.
I love it. And I love the fact, first of all, these ladies are incredible, by the way. So if you have not checked them out, you absolutely need to. Like, I've had the opportunity here recently to really talk and connect with Hannah and Karin. I have not met Sarah yet, but I can't wait to. They're incredible. They're so amazing. And if you ever want to have a conversation with them, they are just like open books. They're like, yeah, let's chat. So, but I love that you said that it was not like something formal where you're like, we're going to put together a team. It really just happened organically. And it was in a way where your values were the same, but you had different strengths. So a lot of times I think we think that something has to look one way, but you can build. The beauty of real estate is this business can look however you want it to look. You just have to find the right place. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and you can build. That's the beauty. That is the beauty of it, is that there's an infinite amount of business models and ways that you can conduct yourself in this business. Some are a lot better than others, but there is a way. I think a lot of people get stuck in thinking they have to follow a certain blueprint in order to succeed, or they watch trainings and they watch one person did it, so they want to do it exactly like that person because that's how it worked, but that's how it worked for them. Right. And although that makes it sound harder because you got to find your way, it makes it exciting, because you're able to really mold your business the way that you want to. And it's not something where it's only going to work if you do it this way. I think that's been proven time and time again. And all of the speakers on the summit too. Like, if you look at everybody's business models and how they run, like, that's a testament right there of how many different ways you can succeed in real estate. And to me, that's just like super exciting. And just like 100%. We love seeing our newer agents come on, and, we always say like, fly birdie fly, right? Like, that's like our like, just, I want to see you fly. Right. And just to see, when we see that progression, it's so cool. And it's just like, you never expect from the beginning how their business grows until it starts happening. And I think that, when you have that, like, I have to know step 7 at step 1, mindset, well, you're not going to, sorry. And even if you did know step 7, guess what? Step 7 is going to be different by the time you get there. Yeah. So you might as well just not have it, And so it's the beauty of it. It can be scary. And like, for certain brains, it can be hard to kind of wrap your head around it, but it's just the coolest part,
I love it. And speaking of Summit, we have to mention it. So if you did not know, if you've been living under a rock, every year I host a summit specifically for women in real estate. The whole idea is just basically what we've been talking about, which is build your business your way. I sound like a Burger King commercial, but but every business does look different, and you really just have to find what's right for you. And that is one of the reasons that the summit is so powerful. It is February 24th through the 28th this year. So just in over a week, but it's our 5th year. So we have a lot of special things happening. And it's our largest summit that we've ever had, with over 35. I think we have 38 speakers. So it's
wild. It's so crazy.
And these ladies are all just as amazing as Hannah. Like, they are so good.
A lot more amazing than Hannah.
They are so incredible. And essentially, what we're doing during this week is all of them are coming in and they're sharing their expertise with you, and they are open books for you for the week. So think of it as you basically getting an entire week of coaching from 38 incredible, amazing, powerful women. We have thousands of women that join us every year for the summit. So it's a really great way for you to make connections. We were just talking about starting to make connections, to get referrals from other agents. So this is a really great way for you to start. And the absolute best part of this, of course, is that it's free. It doesn't cost you anything to come and join us. So you can get your free ticket at thewomeninrealestatesummit.com. And we will then shoot off a welcome email to you with all the details so you can join the group and start connecting with other women. But it's going to be an amazing week. Hannah, will you tell us what it is you're speaking on?
Yes. So I'm speaking on how to make better content on social media. So just tips and tricks and how to build kind of like a formula for yourself for videos that you're making. And I have a lot of nitpicky but important things in order to like learn how to make a better video. Really, like as simple as finding the right lighting and things like that, but then going through those different details. I get really geeky about it. And so I love sharing that part because I think a lot of people just kind of expect you to know all of this stuff when none of us are photographers or videographers, right? That's not what we were trained on. So if your content's not performing the way it is, one part of that could be that your content's great, but the way that you're putting it out there or the quality of video that you're actually making could be the reason it's not getting its like kind of to its highest potential. So that's my presentation. I just talk about how to make better content. So it should be a fun one. And I just get really excited about that because that's personally something I really enjoy doing. And I know that that's not something a lot of people don't enjoy doing.
Yes, I love it. And can you tell people listening how they can find you to start following all the things that you do?
Yeah, so you'll probably find me on Instagram more than anywhere else. My Instagram handle is at Hannah HANNAH _ the property geek. And you can just follow me there. I don't have any, social media managers or anyone that's on there. So if you DM me, you're messaging me. It's me. It's it's because like some people think like, oh, once you hit like 10,000 or more followers, you've got someone in your DMs for you.
Yeah.
Nope, it's literally all me. So
Love it.
feel free to message me there or follow me there and I'll follow you back, and yeah, I'm just really excited to connect with everybody on the summit too. And it's always, I feel like the conversations that stem from the trainings are amazing and the connections that people can make kind of, cross referencing with each other it's really powerful. And I'm so impressed by the way that you do this summit. It is so cool. And the women that you have on here are serious powerhouses.
Yeah.
So I'm like excited to learn. Like, oh yeah, my presentation, like da, 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 da. Like, okay, like what is everybody else gonna teach me? I'm so excited. So it's gonna be a really fun week. I cannot wait.
I love it. Amazing. Well, and listen, just a little bit of foreshadowing. I don't think this is going to be the last time that you see Hannah and myself together. So keep a lookout for what's to come after the summit. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead, say goodbye to y'all. It was great to have this conversation. Hannah, thank you so much for spending the morning with us. And we will see you guys later.
Bye
Bye.
guys.